This podcast is part of the Sports History Network, your headquarters for the yesteryear of your favorite sport. You can learn more at sportshistorynetwork.com.
Hello, sports fans, and welcome to another edition of Yesterday's Sports on the Sports History Network. I know it's baseball season, but today we're going to talk a little AFL football. I began watching pro football in 1969, probably sooner since my father and older brother were sports, but I was too young to remember much of it. I turned 7 years old in 1969, and that's when I started watching with more and studying the game. But admittedly, I knew more about the NFL history than I did about the AFL. And that's probably still the case. I learned about the Raiders, the Chiefs, and the Jets because they had all played in the Super Bowl. I didn't know as much about the other 7 AFL teams. So in this podcast, I will talk about the 1964 Buffalo Bills. The 1964 Bills had what many consider the best team in AFL history. While some might argue, few would dispute that they had the best defense. They allowed only 918 rushing yards in 14 games, and only 3,878 in total yardage. The Bills' offense wasn't too shabby either, gaining 5,206 total yards and scoring 400 points. The season began with an impressive 34-17 win over the Kansas City Chiefs at War Memorial Stadium. The Bills led 31-0 after the first quarter, before putting it into cruise control for the remainder of the game. Although the Bills' defense had a tough time stopping Chiefs quarterback Lenny Dawson, who passed for 253 yards and 2 touchdowns, they held Kansas City to only 64 yards rushing. On offense, Buffalo receiver Len Bass had a big day, catching 5 passes for 98 yards and 2 touchdowns. Quarterback Jack Kemp had a tough day against the Denver Broncos, throwing 4 interceptions, but the Bills' running game made up for it, gaining 230 yards. Cookie Gilchrist gained 92 of those yards and scored 2 touchdowns. Buffalo won easily, 30-13. The Bills blasted the defending AFL champion San Diego Chargers 30-3 in Week 3. Big plays were the order of the day. Defensive back Butch Bird got things started with a 75-yard interception return. In the second quarter, Haygood Clark returned a punt 53 yards to put the Bills ahead 14-3. In the fourth quarter, backup quarterback Darryl LaMonica connected with receiver Albert Dubinon for a 40-yard touchdown. Dubinon had 5 receptions on the day for 123 yards. In a Week 4 game against the Raiders, a struggling Jack Kemp was replaced by Darryl LaMonica, who connected with Albert Dubinon on a 44-yard touchdown strike. LaMonica threw only 10 passes, but those passes gained 104 yards. Cookie Gilchrist had another big day, 91 yards and 87 yards receiving. The Bills gave up only 90 yards rushing on defense and had 6 sacks. The final result was a 23-20 victory. Despite 5 turnovers, the Bills destroyed the Houston Oilers 48-17. The Bills' defense held Houston to only 8 first downs and 137 total yards, while the offense racked up 559 yards. Jack Kemp passed for 378 yards and 3 touchdowns, won a 94 strike to Glenn Bass. Bass gained 147 yards for the day and scored 2 touchdowns. Albert Dubion gained 183 with 1 touchdown. Cookcrest gained 92 yards rushing and 48 yards receiving with 2 touchdowns. The following week, the Bills had a 28-0 lead against the Chiefs in the 3rd quarter, but KC came roaring back to close the gap to 28-22 before Buffalo scored 1 more touchdown to make the final score 35-22. Jack Kemp had a good day, passing for 256 yards and 3 touchdowns. Albert Dubion continued to give defenses fits, gaining 122 yards and scoring 2 touchdowns, won a 55-yarder. The Bills' defense recorded 6 sacks on the day. In Week 7, the stingy Buffalo defense held the New York Jets to just 66 yards rushing, while the Bills' offense racked up 527 total yards. Bobby Smith ran for 98 yards and scored 1 touchdown, while Albert Dubion torched the Jets' defense for 218 yards receiving and 2 touchdowns. The final score was Buffalo 34, New York 24. The Bills' defense gave up only 35 yards rushing against the Oilers, but they had a tough time stopping George Blanda, who threw the ball 68 times for 393 yards. Offensively, Darryl LaMonica and Jack Kemp struggled, completing only 7 of 18 passes and throwing 3 interceptions. But the Bills' running game more than made up for it. With great blocking from the offensive line, Buffalo rushed for 290 yards. Cookie Gilchrist gained 139 of those 290 yards. The Bills won 24-10. Buffalo cruised to an easy 20-7 win over the Jets in Week 9. Many of the Bills' opponents gave up trying to run against their stingy defense. The Jets ran the ball only 13 times for 31 yards. Jets quarterback Dick Wood threw for 367 yards, but the Bills' defense intercepted him 5 times and sacked him 3 times. Offensively, Darryl LaMonica connected with Glenn Bass for an 80-yard touchdown completion. Bass finished the game with 8 receptions for 231 yards. Cookie Gilchrist had a 67-yard touchdown run and finished the game with 99 rushing yards. The Bills were now 9-0, and some were beginning to wonder if they could go undefeated. We'll find out what happened with the rest of the season next week when we continue with Part 2. Thank you for listening. Take care, and God bless.
This podcast is part of the Sports History Network, your headquarters for the yesteryear of your favorite sport. You can learn more at sportshistorynetwork.com.